When you meet your opponent in the ring for the first time and you think he was going to be one way, but he's another, you have to adjust quickly. You know, being honest about Joe, he's not the quickest adjuster.
Pro boxing fans, we're here in London. It's fight week. I'm at Morallee. Is it squeaky bum time? Obviously, Joe Joyce fighting in 2 days' time.
Not right now. Maybe it is at 10:30 on Saturday night, but not right now. It's not squeaky bum time yet.
Let's talk about this serious fight. Obviously, first time around, I think Joe said in interviews that he may have possibly looked a little bit past Joe Zhang, because there was a lot of talk about big fights with Tyson Fury and everything else. This time around, you've been and seen Joe in camp. What's the mentality like? Is there a difference from the last camp?
I think so. I mean, even though Joe wouldn't have kind of deliberately been not giving it 100%, you as an athlete yourself know if you're fighting Tyson Fury or you're fighting a top level person, you're going to be committed in a certain way. And I think last time it wasn't a key busy fight, but it was a tough fight that we were taking, waiting for our world title shot. Now, this is like a world title shot for us. This is a world title shot, in fact. You win the WBO interim, you may well get upgraded. So we are preparing for this, and we have prepared for this like a world title shot. So the level of focus is always high, but even higher.
Even if you don't get upgraded, there's a chance of a big fight with, obviously, whichever way you look at it, it's a big fight for both their careers. But a lot of talk about Joe is that, listen, if he loses this, it's not looking good. But Joe said in a TalkSport interview yesterday that, listen, that's not the case with me. I'm going to be here. I'm not going to talk about any losses, but that's not the case. With Joe, is it just progression now? Just get him to the top, see you can get that world title, and then maybe just call it a day, because he's getting on a little bit.
Yeah, look, I think first and foremost as a manager, your job is to get your boxer out of there, right? Is to get him out of there, sane, with all his faculties intact, with enough money in the bank to live. That's the job, right? And that's what I want for Joe Joyce. But he himself is an athlete that should have won a gold medal, didn't. That, you know, he feels that still. He wants to be a world champion. So for Joe, it's really, really more about titles than it is money. For me, I want to make sure he's financially secure, but it's about titles. So Joe loses this fight, it's a long way back in world titles. It's a long way back. But as a boxer, do people still want to watch Joe Joyce box if he loses it? Yeah. People want to see the Dubois rematch. They want to see other things happen. But at the top level, Usyk, Fury, long way back.
Interesting. Obviously, Zhilei Zhang's the big opponent this time around. Listen, the first time around, I spoke to David Hay actually about this fight. I said, listen, what does Joe Joyce need to do different this time around? Very simply, he said it. He just needs to move his head. Needs to move his head a lot more. Have you seen that in training this time around, that he's maybe coming in a little bit heavier because there's a lot of criticism in regards to that, and he's sort of moving a little bit more?
Yeah, look, I mean, if he was lighter in the first fight, so it was easier for him to move, right? So, you know, adding on weight doesn't equal greater movement. But like that to one side, yeah, Joe has taken a little while to adjust to the southpaw style, and I think having the first fight and this fight, he's now had 18 weeks of southpaw sparring. I think he's adjusted to the style over the two camps, and I think you will see a very different Joe on Saturday. I think he knows. I think it's always interesting in rematches. There's an element in any boxing match about adjustment. When you meet your opponent in the ring for the first time and you think he was going to be one way, but he's another, you have to adjust quickly. You know, being honest about Joe, he's not the quickest adjuster. But now we know what we're facing. Him and Zhang are two guys who are exceptional at a limited number of things. And I think it's an advantage to us as Team Joyce to know what we're facing.
When you say that as a manager, when you plan fights for him, now you know that he's not a quick adjuster. Does that change your mindset in the type of fights that you make for Joe? Is it just about the most lucrative fights, the most money fights?
No, I don't think at the heavyweight level, not being a quick adjuster isn't such a big problem. At super middleweight, 140 level, yeah, it's a huge problem. But for Joe now, we're out of that stage of his career where we're really matchmaking him. You know, Lemroy, Thomas, is that the right guy? Yeah, we want all the big fights. Want AJ, want Fury, want Usyk, etc. So, you know, that's just part of Joe. It's part of who he is. But the flip side of that is once he's got something nailed, he's unbeatable. So let's say he's going to fight Usyk, right? Usyk is the WBO champion. He'll be coming into that third southpaw sparring camp in a row. He'll be even better than he will be in this fight.
Is there any pressure on Joe to put in a good performance, maybe get a knockout? Is it just about getting this W on Saturday night?
It's definitely just about getting the win. This is an elite level opponent. We have to come out of there. Any win, regardless of the type of win, I'm really happy with. If he does something spectacular, fantastic, icing on the cake. Joe Joyce has to win that WBO interim back.
And like we said, obviously the carrot that's dangling at the end of this is a possible fight with one of the big boys. If not, you get upgraded if it gets vacated. I'm sure Joyce is going to have exactly the same hunger that Joe's got for this fight. Do you see anything in Zhang that might be different this time around, or do you think we got to see everything of Zhang in that first fight?
I haven't seen Zhang yet. The press conference is just about to start. I haven't actually seen him. I hear people tell me he's a bit lighter. I think he realises that Joe is going to be aware of the backhand. Probably won't be able to do to his eye what he did before. Maybe leaning Joe into the counter right hook. But I think Zhang realises it's going to go the distance. Round 5, round 6 last time, Joe was outlanding Zhang 4-1. So I think Zhang's going to have improved on his fitness. But by improving on his fitness, has he taken something away from the rest of his game?
Fair enough. Last two from myself, I do want to talk about the big man of the division, Tyson Fury. What do you make of this fight with Francis Ngannou? I'm getting people's thoughts on it. It's getting mixed reactions with the boxing public. Well, what's your thoughts on that fight?
Look, I think when I look at that as an overall athlete manager, I think it's a incredible bit of business from Tyson Fury, making an extraordinary amount of money to fight a guy who's never boxed before, increasing his profile, increasing his bank balance, and increasing the amount of fans that come to the sport. So I think overall it's a very, very good thing for him. I understand that people want to see him fight AJ Usyk and others in boxing, and I think that should happen. But just because he's not fighting them now doesn't mean this fight's a bad thing.
Can I ask you then, there's calls on social media and just around boxing that if Tyson Fury ain't going to defend his belt, that maybe he needs to sort of vacate, not even vacate it, maybe WBC have done it before where, with Devin Haney, where they've taken the belts off him and said at some point when you want to fight, we'll put you in line for that belt. Yeah, champion in recess. So do you understand them calls up? If Tyson's not going to defend his belt, that maybe give it to someone else, or maybe have a match in line for that.
Yeah, I think if he doesn't defend it, he fought Dillian White in April 2022, didn't he? So 18 months, probably due around now. I'm sure Mauricio Suleiman's going to give him this fight, but I think he should be defending it next fight. If he doesn't defend it next fight, then maybe those calls are realistic. But he's the biggest draw. Let's be honest, he's the biggest draw in the heavyweight division. So the WBC want him as their champion. So I'm sure they're going to show leniency towards him. He's such a big character.
Carl Froch said, I'm not sure if you looked online, but Carl Froch and Tyson Fury have had a bit of a back and forth.
Tyson Fury come back at him? What's Tyson Fury said?
Well, Carl Froch said, I think he got in touch with Carl Froch and they had a back and forth, and Carl Froch saying, listen, Fury's hating the sport, the fans are turning against him. And I spoke to a few people yesterday saying the criticism that Fury is getting after the announcement of this fight, I've never seen it before, because normally the Fury's got a big fan base. This time around there was a bit more negativity towards Fury. Do you understand why that is though?
Yeah, look, I think within boxing you've got hardcore fans who aren't happy with what Tyson's doing. He's not fighting the champions, he's going outside the sport. So hardcore fans won't like it, but what people are missing there is outside that hardcore fan bubble, there are people watching at home with the Furies on Netflix. The guy's more famous than ever. He's drawing people into the sport. I like his strategy. He's a marketing genius. So he's bringing people in. So I wouldn't hate what he's doing right now, but if he constantly fights people from outside boxing, yeah, it will get a bit grating. You think, why isn't he fighting someone? But this fight's a great fight.
Well, Adam, it is getting slightly more quiet in here, which means the press conference is going to start. Your name's on the table, so you've got to go. Adam, always a pleasure to talk to yourself. Good luck to yourself, the team, and everyone else on Saturday night, and no doubt we'll speak to you soon. Top man.